Alright, so the next few videos I'm going to make are probably going to be like the most important ones I've ever made, because it comes down to final construction of the model I want to 3D print and have CNC machined. So I left off with talking about having the whole thing underwater, which is obviously retarded. Alright, now talk to my buddy, mover guy who talks about food and stuff, Candida. The organism that lives inside of you. It's full of sugar and terrible nonsense. Anyways, you're toxic. That's why you feel bad. That's why you're grumpy. That's why you're sick. But anyway, this is an 8-bit cell. It's a 9x9 matrix. Now my model is a 2x2x2 inside of a 6x6x6 inside of a 8x8x8 cell. This could look like the cellular energy model. Okay, but we're going to talk about the dead space, okay, within the cell. Okay, we all understand that there's going to be wheels turning and going outward, on the vertices, everywhere, okay, everywhere. But inside, all you're going to have is a little ball of heaven, and then a bunch of dead space, and then wheels within the last 6 to 8 units of measure, okay? Which means that, like, from 5.5, I'd say inward, or 5.5 plus 5.5, 11, you're going to have 4 that is accounted for by the 2x2x2 in the middle, okay? So you're going to have a 7.5, area of dead space. All the way around, all the way on top, all the way everywhere, in a spherical pattern. So if we look at this 9x9 matrix, and we think about this as the rings of heaven now. We've zoomed into the free energy device, and now this is the rings of heaven, okay? That's your black hole, okay? Now, the concept of a fishbowl was made, okay? Why don't you have the rings of heaven where the magnets are in a fishbowl of water inside, so that the wheels and the solenoids and all the wiring is not, shorted. Now, the only thing going to be shorted probably are your 2 positive voltage connections to your 3 rings of heaven and your 2 rings of heaven. Again, 3 and 2 or 2 and 3, very important numbers and everything, okay? So what do we have in there? Do we have enough for a 2x2x2? Do we have enough for a 3x3x3? Do we have enough for a 4x4x4? Yes, we do, okay? Now, it got me thinking of the concept of a terrarium for plants, okay? That's like a space for the plant to live that is all glass molded, so that there's it's encased in another glass. Okay, so when the humidity rises or whatever, it condensens in the top of the bubble before it goes up to the top, and then it comes back down. It's always very humid. Okay, so imagine this. How are you going to seal heaven? You have 14 axles piercing it. Okay, how is the water going to stay in there? Okay, well, get this. All right, what is the relationship between magnetism and copper called? It's called an eddy current. If you have 14 axles going in with a magnet on the end in front of a black hole, where the distance from here to here is 7.83 or 7.85 millimeters. Okay, so you're going to have magnets all the way around the black hole. You're not going to be able to see it. But inside the spherical space here, you're going to have water. But it's not going to be filled completely with water. Okay? The Earth is about 80% water. Humans are about 80% water, right? Well, if this is a 9x9x9, 9x9 grid, 9x9x9 for volume, and we take the first and the last column and rows as the encasement for it, what are we left with? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7x7. Now, if we were to fill this 1/7, 2/7, 3/7, 4/7, 5/7, 6/7 with water, Armageddon would be a floating land mass of floaty bits in whatever water you're using. Okay? 6/7 is 0.857, 1428. Let me repeat. 5 pi over 2 is 7.85. This is 8.5. Okay? It's like your remainder. And then it goes to the n7, n squared, or 2n, 14, and then 4n, 28. followed by 6. I just find that interesting. But look, 80%, we're like 80% water and stuff. So what would happen if you had 14 axles coming in, okay, with magnets, where everything was perfectly submerged? What happens when you're in a boat with a paddle and you're paddling in the water? What do you create? You create eddy currents. Now imagine this. Heaven is filled, it's spherical, it's filled this much with water. This whole 9x9 is submerged. And every axle is submerged. And they're rotating at like 9,000 RPM. And the axle is shaped like a Pac-Man, okay, with a wedge cut out, because then when you slip your wheels on, it has something to give to. So that rotating Pac-Man is going to be pushing water, creating, you know, a whirlpool in 14 directions around this. So you're going to have a whirlpool hitting a magnet. Okay, a whirlpool coming and hitting an eddy current. Those are called eddy currents, those whirlpools. Now, isn't it funny that the same axle is going to have a bunch of wheels producing eddy current, and the other end of the axle is going to be producing eddy currents, analog and digital. Yeah, you want to find out how you're going to make the jump? This is how. Now what's going to happen is all the little bubbles from the eddy currents are going to get sucked into the vortex, to the black hole, and it's going to hopefully make one nice big bubble. That's your cellular Earth. Now if there's any sediment in the water that's floating on top, that sediment is going to eventually be sucked down by the 5 ones in the air and the 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in the underwater. Now of course they're going to leak, but once you create an eddy current or a whirlpool, it gets bigger. Now if it gets bigger, who's to say that water is going to escape from the 9 submerged places? But even so, if you were to create a 4x4, or if you were to create between the 2x2x2 and the 4x4x4, let's say, another catching vase, okay, with 5 pillars on the bottom, because you're going to have 2 X's, and your center, and then all the way around. But if those leak, they're probably going to roll down the ball and then fall into the tray. But you need something to catch it. Now that catching thing is still going to have one axle going through it, okay? What I think is going to happen is if you make a bubble on every one of the axles in the catching tray, where when the axle goes through, there's only a little bit of space where it can rotate and like splatter the remnant water onto the walls, so they collect in the collection basins that are much lower than where the axles are at the top of the mountain. You have your peaks and your valleys. You have your peaks and your valleys. You have your peaks and your valleys. So you should have 5 valleys. And when you have those 5 valleys, it's like take a straw from the bottom of those valleys and 3D print it on the sphere itself to go all the way back up and put the water back in. There's your rain, there's your precipitation, there's your humidity coming in, there's your wind. It's an infinite feedback system. You have to have a closed loop system. So if you have water inside here swirling, it's going to be sucked down, going here, have water. Water is going to come in and escape. Air is going to, or gases are going to come in and escape. The sediment's going to come in and collect as a spherical cellular Earth, where heaven's going to be the infinitesimal singularity on the inside of that ball of air. Not just air, but like all of the elements from the water will be changed to gas. Now think of this: Deadpool, whirlpool, Deadpool. I want to use water from the Dead Sea, the Holy Land. Deadpool, Dead Sea water in heaven, cellular energy device to create cellular Earth. And also a depiction. Okay, look, what is it? If you have a sphere holding 6/7 water, it's going to look like an eyeball. It's going to look like a giant eyeball, and right here is your iris, and then on top will be your lens, the part that has the air, and the part that has the water, and then the flat part, that the floaty bits before you turn it on, where we live on. Do a cross section of that. There's your flat Earth with your dome, you idiots. Your lens, the lens, or the part of the cellular energy device, the heaven, that has the gases in it and not water, would be the lens of your eye. The sediment would be where you live on, and there's always some magical thing under the earth, right? Because you got to go to Antarctica and then go through the under earth to go to Magic Land, right? You bunch of retards. No, it's just the black hole that's created by 14 eddy currents with 14 rotating magnets at 23.4 degrees each to create a black cube of Mecca. And people are always going around. The magnets are turning, the axles are turning, the axles are creating eddy currents. The eddy currents will open up so that water will not fall through the 9 submerged pivot points into the basin. But there will still be something. There will always be a feedback loop of gas or whatever, okay? It'll be in a vacuum. It's underwater. You created a vacuum system. I wonder what lightning is. Maybe lightning is the arcing of electricity on this model between the rotating magnet and the rings, stationary rings of heaven, you know, across the bubble. And it's a reflection of light through the bubble in an M+2 reality over the skies of the dome, which causes what we see in our skies. You have to understand, when you 3D print this, it doesn't come translucent. You're not going to be able to see through this. You're not going to be able to see through it anyways, because you're going to have a bunch of magnets in front of the black hole. You'll never see the black hole. But think about 14 eddy currents in water making eddy currents pinpointed at a singularity. What is that going to do? Again, 2 by 2 by 2, and then a 3 by 3 by 3 with basins that go up to 5 by 5 or 4 by 4 by 4 with straws leading from the bottom to the top for your 5 by 5 by 5, and there's still space in the cellular Earth model for all this to happen. You need to be able to pour water into it, or already have water into it before it goes. And maybe the breath of life is before it starts, you have to like literally suck the water from the bottom and pipette it up so that it doesn't overflow the second one or something. Okay, so if this is the cellular energy model, that would be heaven. That would be 6/7 full of water. Okay, there'll be a catcher system within there, and then wheels, room for wheels on your faces and vertices where nothing touches, you know. I'm only talking about a space 1.5 centimeters by 1.5 centimeters by 1.5 centimeters at the epicenter. Like, look at all the dead space. All this black space is your dead space, or your M's are maybe. Maybe this is the depiction of the collectors. Like, you have to have low spots that have straws that go back up to the top to feed back in as precipitation. And these would be the 1, 2 submerged, 1... Really, cat? Really? These would be the 1, 2 submerged, 1, 2 submerged for the corners, the 1 for the bottom, and then the 1, 2, 1, 2... Ow! For your faces. Those are your 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Those are your 9 submerged pivot points. That's what that means. Okay, so I'm pretty sure my debate is over about the possibility of this happening. Okay, the model's been evolving, you know. It's kind of interesting. Okay, I don't want to talk about what you think is truth. I have 0% chance of putting up with that. But I mean, yeah, it's Armageddon consciousness. Okay, now it's becoming very interesting. Eddy currents and eddy currents on the same axle. I have the circuit diagram. I have a very good idea what I'd like to model. You know? Who's good at modeling stuff on computers? Who has experience doing that? Fuck, I think they learn that in, like, high school these days. It makes a 5-pointed star. The 5 pillars, okay? 6, 7, 8, 9. 9. The 5th pillar's rising, okay? It's like a 2-liter pop bottle. They have, like, the dimples. Look. This is what I'm talking about. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's your 5-pointed star. You need 5 straws going from the base of these to the top to make a closed loop system. Cheers.